Did you know that the Bible talks about investments? And as a Christian, you may have thought about investing into things like cryptocurrency. And so I think it's important to see what the Bible says about investing. And if you're new to the channel, welcome. My name is Mckensy Long. I have been in the financial services industry for the last decade. And if you want to do better financially, I highly recommend you smash that like button and also hit the subscribe as well. That way you can follow along with additional content, because that's what this entire channel is all about. And today we want to know, what is it that the Bible has to say about investing in crypto? And truthfully, well, not very much. Well, at least not crypto in and of itself, but the Bible does have tons of information about investing, which is not surprising because obviously cryptocurrencies and digital currencies really weren't invented back then. However, the principles of money have applied across time. And that means that we can come to conclusions about money and saving and investing if we simply read the Bible. And there's a great book that you can use if you're just getting started and you don't know which parts to read. I think Proverbs is a great place to figure out some great life strategies, or pretty much everything that you hear as far as people who are strategizing in business or in life or about money. Generally, those principles go back to Proverbs. So you can read it direct if you just want to go read Proverbs. Now there's a bunch of other stuff in there about how to live your life, but there's tons of things about money and investing. And in talking about whether we should be investing in things like cryptocurrency, I think it's important to understand that Proverbs was written by one of the most wealthy people who have ever lived, Solomon. And I think this relates to what we're talking about, because Solomon, having lots of money, he talked a lot about money and about life. But what's really fascinating was when Solomon offered his life to God, God asked him what he wanted. And Solomon didn't ask for money, he asked for wisdom. Which is kind of interesting, because if anybody had a genie, or any movie you've watched about genies or having some kind of wishes, what do people usually wish for? They wish for wealth. They don't usually wish for wisdom. And you're probably still wondering, what the heck does any of this have to do with crypto? I'm getting there, I promise. And in understanding this, I think it's important to understand that Solomon asked for wisdom. And because of his wisdom, he amassed a tremendous amount of wealth. And there's a message even in that story. So as we dive into some of these things that Solomon has to say, I think it's great lessons for us. And as we get into those, I want to ask you, how wise are you about investments and about money? And the reason why this question is important is because money is a lot like a vehicle. And if we can relate this, having income is similar to a vehicle. Now, just because you have a car, if you remember you're getting your first car, it doesn't mean you know the rules of the road, and it doesn't mean you know how to drive. So what has to happen? Well, first and foremost, becoming financially literate is similar to having your license. It means you know the rules of the road, you understand the game, you understand what it is that you're supposed to be doing, but it doesn't mean that you have any technical or actual physical knowledge of how to drive. And this means understanding the difference between what is a danger and how to avoid it, and also being able to find opportunities and go towards them. So if you can understand that relationship, that if we don't understand the rules of the game, and we also don't understand how to actually play the game, our chances of success are very, very low when it comes to money or anything in general, driving success in this particular case. The chances of you being a great driver is very low simply because you have a vehicle. Your ability to earn doesn't necessarily mean that you are financially literate or financially educated. And if you feel that that's something that you struggle with, I highly recommend you clicking down below. We can have a chat. You can start becoming financially educated. We have tons of resources for that, including books and courses and live events that we do that you can become more literate. And the reason why that's so important is if you don't know the difference between something that's dangerous and something that's an opportunity, how are you supposed to have a chance at success? And really, when you dive into it, you realize that in opportunity is danger, And oftentimes in danger, there's an element of opportunity. But if you don't understand those relationships and the risk and reward of those, the chance of you having success is very low. And having been doing this for the last decade, crypto is just the new fad. There was NFTs, and then there was crypto, and then before that it was legal marijuana, and there was things before that and things before that. And so these hot fads come up all the time. The challenge is, in my 10 years, I have never known somebody to become successful off of those, or nor have I known somebody who knew somebody who became successful off of those. The likelihood of doing that is tremendously small. And it's not because they're dumb, they just don't understand the rules of the game and they don't really know what they're getting into. They're just following the hype. And the Bible has a lot to say about that. And I think even before getting into that, you will understand that if you are not literate, if you're not educated about something, you're not going to do very well with it. Think about people who are trying to work on a car. If you've ever seen somebody pulled over on the side of the road, those people have no idea how a car works. What do? They pop the hood and they stare there and look at it. But how come the person standing next to them, the mechanic, can look at the car and see something entirely different? That's the same way that it works when it comes to money and investments. Somebody who's well educated and literate sees a different picture and understands how things work differently than somebody who's entirely uneducated about the topic. And that should make perfect sense to us. And also, if you've been watching my videos about the FTX lawsuits, I think those are pretty hilarious as well. Some of the stuff that's going on there. Make sure you check those out also. There should probably be a link somewhere up here if you want to watch that, or you can go back into my videos and find some of that stuff as well. So why do I say all of that? Well, I say that to preface exactly what Solomon talks about in Proverbs. He says, whoever hastens to become rich will not go unpunished. And Proverbs 12:11 says, he who tills his land will be satisfied with bread, but he who follows vain persons is void of understanding. And you've probably fallen for something previously in your life where we were trying to do something quick, or we thought we were getting over on somebody or something. And I remember specifically when I was young, I was at home one day and I was out mowing the yard and this guy pulled up in a truck. And he pulls up in the truck and he whistles to me, and so I walk over and I talk to him and he shows me this article. He says, man, I have some of these speakers in the back and they had basically fallen off the truck. They were extra ones that were shipped in. He wasn't charged for them, so he was willing to sell them at a really low price. So he opens them up for me, and I'm pretty skeptical at this point. He opens them up and I'm looking at them and they actually look like speakers. They actually have connections. I knew a little bit about that. I put some speaker systems together. This particular one was for a house. And so I was like, oh, okay, this is kind of a cool deal. But you know that feeling you have in the pit of your stomach? You're like, this isn't really right, but man, these things, I'm getting a huge discount on it and I could really use this and it would benefit my family. I was living at home at the time. I was a teenager. And so I was like, man, I could put these together and it would be pretty cool. My family, when we're watching a movie together, we could have this great sound system. And so I felt like I was kind of doing it for the right reason. So we kind of negotiate on a price. I run upstairs, I grab some cash, I run back out the door, I give him the cash, it gives me the speakers. And then I go on and I plug the speakers in and they actually worked. And I didn't think anything of it until I started reading other things that had been happening in the neighborhood about that, where they basically took these cheap knockoffs that looked kind of similar and then they put the little label on it. So it wasn't real. So instead of tilling my land, I mean, I was a teenager and I was mowing the lawn at the time. If that's pretty hilarious, I think, actually. But so I was tilling the land, but I was following persons in a vain pursuit, and so I was void of understanding. I didn't really understand how these things worked, and I thought I was getting a good deal. And those things happen to us all the time. So how do we know the difference between whether we're getting a good deal or whether we're working the system and somebody's being hurt by it and we're doing something we're not supposed to be doing? Well, that's where financial literacy comes in, which is also different than shopping around and being frugal and getting a good price on something. We know when we're manipulating things and when it's not a good feeling. And that's the challenge when it comes to things like cryptocurrency. And that's why it's not really a blanket slate answer, and I'll give you my answer at the end, but that's why I don't think it's a blanket slated answer, and that's why it's not necessarily a blanket slate answer from Solomon either. But when we're talking about people who invest in cryptocurrency, generally speaking, they're extremely uneducated, and they might be educated in the sense of their job or what they do and how to make money, but they're uneducated about how money works and how to invest. So they are financially illiterate. They are void of understanding. So of course they're going to make mistakes when it comes to money. They're void of understanding, but they're hoping that they're going to win big. Back to Proverbs 28:20, he who hastens to be rich will not go unpunished. Although I wasn't looking to be rich, I wanted to have something that a rich person would have at a much lower cost, way before I had actually earned it. And you can probably think of times in your life where you've wanted that as well. And there's nothing wrong with wanting that. The question is, how do you actually get there? As with most things in the Bible, it has to do with your heart. Was my heart in the right place? Was I saying I was going to go work extra hours so I could actually buy that thing? Or was I trying to find a shortcut to having something? And before they had showed up, I never even had thought about buying it. But I was trying to find a shortcut, and I could justify it in my head, and I could justify it to myself that I was doing it for my family, when in reality, I knew what I was doing was wrong. Whereas when you truly build wealth, you do it by becoming wise. They invest their time and energy at getting good at something, creating a great income, and also setting that money aside in different vehicles and the type of vehicles that they should use and they become literate when it comes to money. They become educated in what's actually out there. And now everybody fails in trying to invest and do better with money. You're going to make mistakes. That doesn't mean that you're sinning. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't be doing it. It just means you're getting better at something. But start with the basics. Start working on the fundamentals of making sure you have the proper protection in place, building an emergency fund, managing your debt, building additional income, building your wealth, protecting your wealth. And if you have extra beyond those things that you can basically guarantee that you're going to make it. We know that if you save a certain amount of money, you can calculate this out. We know how much money you're going to have into the future. That's just math. So if you can meet those things that you want and you have the chance to speculate, I'm not saying don't do that. You can invest in things that are much more risky. But when you try to skip all of those steps like this kid is doing in this picture, your chances are you're going to end up messing something up. Your chances of hitting a home run, even though you've never swung a bat against a Major League Baseball pitcher, is extremely low. Chances are you are never going to hit a home run and do that. Why? Because you're inexperienced and you're playing against people who are experienced. So is investing in cryptocurrency a sin? Does the Bible say that you should not invest in cryptocurrency? Well, it does not say that. Does it say that investing in speculation is sin? It doesn't say that either. But being lazy to learn how money works, being lazy to work hard and actually build wealth, that is. And that when you're doing that and trying to get ahead financially, when you're not willing to put in the effort and you're just trying to hit that home run, win the lottery, have your cryptocurrency go up 100,000% overnight, it's going to lead to you being punished financially. And that's why part of me doesn't feel bad about what's happening with FTX, because it happens every time. And what's crazy is it's often the same people who just fall for the next thing over and over and over again. It's because they don't want to actually do the work and build the way that wealth is built. And unless you become educated, unless you learn about money, how are you supposed to know that something is too good to be true or not? And that's why I think it's so important to become financially literate, become financially educated, and understand how money actually works. And if that's really your goal, I highly recommend you hit the subscribe button. Don't forget to hit the bell as well, because we're putting out tons of content that will help your life be better, especially if you want to do better financially. And as always, I hope this helps you. Smash that like button, post a comment down below. I would love to hear your opinion about it. And if I can help in some way, let me know. I'll catch you guys later. Bye.